This is the Menopause Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Gordon. Now, here at the Menopause Movement, we've surveyed over 50,000 menopausal women. And through this, we've discovered that the number one cause of menopausal suffering for our clients is weight gain. Now, you've said things like, how do I lose the minnow belly? I don't recognize myself anymore. How can I get me back? When menopause hit me out of the blue, I had no idea what was happening. And when I gained about 50 pounds overnight, I hated what I saw in the mirror. The menopause movement exists to provide world-class transformational education to women who are suffering from the symptoms and effects of menopause. And we're here to give you the education you need to get your life back. We want menopause to be the best time of your life. I mean, it is for me, and I want that for you. After years of trial and error, I finally cracked the code with my menopause weight, and now I want to share with you how I did it. I realized that what helped me the most was a challenge. So we've created a challenge for you to help you lose your minnow belly. Simply go to menopausemovement.com/challenge to sign up. I'll see you there. Hey, what's up, Menopod? I'm Dr. G, and this is the Menopause Movement Podcast. Welcome. So the remnants of Hurricane Elsa are beating down outside my window right now. And even though it's late in the morning, it looks really dark outside, like dusk. The rain's beating down. The thunder is intermittently booming in the background. It reminds me of the weather's mighty power. Coming up, I've got my second 5K race of the summer, and it's just in a few days. I still feel pretty unready despite my ability to run the distance well and without breaks. And if I listen to my inner critic, I won't perform the way I know I can. But I know that my inner critic isn't me. I think about it, right? The inner critic, in one sentence, will tell us about our biggest mistake and how much we suck, and then in the exact same breath will cheer us on. It's so weird. And that's why I've detached from it. You see, we build up that inner critic from the messaging we get in childhood, and it affects us until we choose to change our relationship with it. We spend a lot of time talking about that in our conversation today. And to make any change, our first step is awareness. When it comes to menopause, the only constant is change. And I'm here to tell you that change is possible, but it can't happen overnight. Now, the first step to change is making the decision to change, but then we have to back that up with action. And that's our challenge. How do we take any action? And even more importantly, what actions should we take? The menopause movement is here to help you with all of that. Menopause can be a time of misery, or it can be a time of unapologetic action toward creating a life we love. I woke up in the middle of my menopausal journey hating myself, my body, and the life I had created. I didn't know what to do, so I went on a quest to find out how to make change happen. And the result was the menopause movement and this podcast. The menopause movement has one purpose: to help end the suffering caused by menopause through transformational education and coaching. And we want to help you too. So head on over to menopausemovement.com, take the quiz there, and not only will you discover your type, but we'll also tailor some offerings to you just for you to help you take your life back from menopause. Getting into the driver's seat of my life was the first step I took to overcome the challenges and the changes I experienced with menopause. But I did it alone, and it was really lonely. The menopause movement has created a community of women who are unapologetically deciding to become their best selves, one small action at a time, and you can too. Join our community and start to create a life you love. Today, we're going to be talking about living a fit and vibrant life and how to achieve a healthy weight over 50 without dieting. Our guest today is Tanja Shaw. She's a life and weight loss coach, host of the Fit and Vibrant You podcast, founder of Ascend Fitness and Lifestyle, a holistic health coaching studio in Chilliwack, BC, and Fit and Vibrant over 50. Tanja has a reputation for helping thousands of women get into their happy, healthy weight permanently, naturally, without the obsession, so they can live their life. Tanja, her husband Keith, and their son Jacob live in Chilliwack, BC, about an hour outside Vancouver, Canada. She loves being active, outdoors, running, hiking, paddleboarding, mountain biking, and camping. She also loves a good cup of coffee and a glass of red wine. During the podcast, we talk about who Tanja is and how she got started with weight loss anyway, and getting off the diet roller coaster, obsession with weight and how it detracts from the joy in our lives, how hope is not a success strategy, stress is a factor in weight gain, the shoulds we tell ourselves, and how they are detrimental to our progress, the importance of language, whatever the language that we use, especially with ourselves, the role consistency plays in success, The 3 phases of action in Tanja's plan: patience, patience, patience. What to celebrate when you start to see some success. And stay to the end to find out what is normal eating and how to get it started. At the end of the episode, visit menopausemovement.com/podcast, where you can find the show notes, plus the links to the books and resources mentioned in the episode. If you like this episode, leave a written review, like and subscribe on YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, so you're always the first to know when each episode is released. Share it with your friends, tell everyone about it, and tell me, who should we have on the podcast next? What can we do to make it better? I definitely want to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram at Dr. Michelle Gordon. That's DrMichellGordon, or on Facebook, same thing, Dr. Michelle Gordon. And when you send me a DM, you get me. There's nobody else, not on my DMs. Or you can send an email to me at drgordon@menopausemovement.com. Thanks again for being a part of the Menopause Movement. I'm so excited to bring this today, because today's all about how to manage our thoughts more than anything else. And when it comes to weight loss, that's a really important first step. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Let's get to Tanja. So Tanja, welcome to the Menopause Movement Podcast. It's super exciting to have you here. And what I love about your bio and about what you've talked about in your podcast, all of this, is that you kind of help women find themselves, love themselves, and actually create a body they love. So you want to just talk a little bit about where you live, who you serve, how you got into it, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Tanja, and I live in Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is about an hour east of Vancouver in British Columbia. And I help women, specifically over the age of 50, who have been struggling with their diet, with that on again, off again roller coaster ride, hamster wheel for many years. A lot of women started dieting when they were 5, 8, 13 years old, to get to a place where they get to their happy, healthy weight permanently, naturally, and without the obsession, really, so that they can be freed up and live their life. And for me, my whole journey started when I fell in love with fitness, and really just how it made me feel. I loved, as a young kid, I joined the kilometer club when I was in grade 4, and I just always loved the feeling of the after and how my mind felt and how clear I was and motivated I was. And I was also really into science, so I took a degree in kinesiology because I could combine my love for the science side of things and also human movement. And after my university degree, I started working as a kinesiologist and then into personal training as well. And I really got, again, more in love with how fitness and how movement could transform people's lives. And at the same time, I started my first diet. And up until then, I just pretty much did food pretty naturally. I mean, I was aware of my weight and the pretty typical things. I knew that, I remember being in grade 8 and thinking I was huge because I was a little bit bigger than my friends. Honestly, that's relatively within the norm of just us growing up. And at the age of 21, I did my first diet and I lost a significant amount of weight. And I didn't have much weight to lose at that time. In about 9 days, you take these little cleanse, you do the shakes, you do the pills, you do the little snacks, which are 5-calorie little chromium tablets. Mm-hmm. And I loved the way my body felt at that point. But instead of it being this, okay, I did this diet and I gained all the way back plus more, it became an obsession. And for the next few years, I really went down the diet cycle on the other side. So I became very restrictive. I became very hyper-focused on my weight. I let it define me. I weighed myself every day and let it define who I was and whether I deserved pleasure that day, or if I could eat enough, or if I needed to do a double workout. And my whole life really revolved around my body and being a certain size. And the thing is that it was still a symptom of the same issues that women deal with when it comes to the on-again, off-again diet cycle. So I maintained my weight by strict dieting. When I couldn't do it and I went way off, I would go back to over-obsessing. I'd go back to over-exercising. And it robbed me of living my life. I remember one morning waking up and my son was sleeping in his room. And 5 o'clock in the morning, I am naked on the scale because you strip your clothes off, you go pee, you look at yourself in the mirror, and I weighed myself and I took a good hard look at myself, and I got really upset. And I just really hit me in that moment that I was wasting so much of my life energy on negative self-talk, on dieting, of defining my self-worth from whether or not I could be disciplined and stick to it. And at the same time, I was coaching other women and men in their fitness. I was running a fitness business. I started my own business at that time. And I was telling them that all they need to do was, cut out carbs and work on the macros and do more intense workouts. And they got results. Like, they lost weight. Sure, they did, but they were never able to stick with it. And they struggled with the on again, off again. They never learned how to make it a lifestyle change. And by coaching other people, I really started to recognize that their struggle with food was much like mine. It had nothing to do with the actual food itself. It's not like they didn't know that the chips and the nachos and the wine and the cold pizza that they're eating leftover right from the fridge because they screwed up their diet. Like, they already knew that wasn't helpful for their weight loss goals and to get the body and the life that they want. So I really started questioning my own approach, questioning myself, and it didn't come overnight. It wasn't easy because it is a bit of a grieving process to give that up, and there's a fear there. It's like you're jumping off a bridge, like when you're bungee jumping and you just want something to hold on to, but there's nothing to hold on to. You know the diet, you know how to restrict food, you know how to count calories, you know how to count macros, you know how to do all the things, but you don't know how to start to build a better relationship with your body. There's no step-by-step process of how to do that.
Yeah,
I stick with it.
Right. I love that. I think that it's really important. I mean, we talk about this at the menopause movement a lot because at the end of the day, if you want to feel happier, that's on you. You have to make the changes, and knowing where to start is the hardest part. Like, how do I get started? I know I don't like how I feel. So what do I do next? And that's what we do, here at the menopause movement. And the problem is that, we all know what to do. It's like, how do I get that? How do I either create a relationship with myself to the point where I have enough, self-efficacy or, belief in myself that I'll actually follow through, which can be hard? Or how can I create some sort of accountability with other people that's not shaming, to help me move forward, right? And I'll tell you, if you want to lose weight, I think the most important thing is to just start accepting yourself where you are, right? And you start accepting yourself where you are, and then start thinking about what it is you want, and start taking those actions that person would do. Like I use this analogy all the time. You want to lose 100 pounds. There's no way to lose 100 pounds overnight. It's just not possible, right? I mean, I can pick up my pin and I can drop it and it's going to fall. But if I want to lose weight overnight, I just physically cannot do it. It's just not physically possible. But what is possible is to make the decision and then to start to act like that person who already lost that 100 pounds and start kind of working it backwards. And so we talk a lot about how to reverse engineer an outcome that you want. And so how do you reverse engineer an outcome of starting to move your body more, starting to love yourself, or that sort of thing? And so those are some of the questions that come up, especially in menopause, because it's a time of not just hormonal change, but our brains change because of the hormones, and our responsibilities change because our kids are grown, and our whole relationship with ourselves just changes. And that's why you're here, to help us, shepherd us along a little bit.
I wrote some notes here as you were talking. There's a couple things I just wanted to touch on. I think you said they were so powerful. One is that starting from working on the identity piece and how critical that is. And what happens is that when we start these programs, we start, taking better care of ourselves, we usually start from a place of that rock bottom, or that you see something that you never want to see, or that number on the scale, or you have a scare, or you're just exhausted with feeling how terrible you feel. And you believe that because it feels so crappy at the moment, and you feel so shameful, so disgusted, so just not good about yourself, that whatever it takes, you're going to be able to stick with it. You just believe in the moment that I'm just going to do all the things. But until you are actually more intentional with changing your self-talk, with changing your identity, and not just hoping that it's going to happen by exercising for a little while or by following some meal plan for a little while, you need to, it's like running a business. You could be the best coach, the best practitioner in the world, but and maybe you have great client results, but if you don't know how to run a business, you're going to be the best kept secret. And so we can't just hope that by following these plans that the inside part is going to take care of itself, because it doesn't happen that way. Sometimes it does. There's a lucky few that do transform, but we need to be more intentional with really setting ourselves up for success, so we're not relying on just the hope and the chance that it's gonna work. And I love what you said there about accepting yourself as you are. I think there's such a big idea, and we think like, oh, self-love and self-acceptance and respect is all woo-woo and fluffy rainbows, that sort of thing. And there's a belief, sometimes a feeling, that if I accept myself, that means I'm just going to let myself go or be okay with where I'm at. And that's absolutely not the case, because you can accept where you're at. You can acknowledge where you're at. You can even love yourself, and you can still want to change. Self-acceptance is not complacency. It doesn't mean that you're not going to want to do better for yourself. In fact, it's just the opposite. And you talk all the time about hormones, as do I. But one of the hormones that we don't need more of generally is cortisol. And when you're always in this fight response with yourself, when you're hating on yourself, when you are hard on yourself all the time, there is a stress response. So when you can just alleviate that, and you can say like, I'm okay with the way I am, and I'm going to get better, and I'm taking that next step, then now you can come out from a place of I get to versus I must do these things because otherwise I'm not enough. Otherwise I'm coming away from those pain points. You can actually move towards what you want. The other thing you said there is about the changes that happen in life. And for a lot of women are in the sandwich generation, where you have teenage kids and you have aging parents and you're still working. Some women I work with are now heading into retirement, which, although that gives you more free time, can also be a really scary change. And one of the more challenging parts here is that all of a sudden you might be without the, I don't want to say distractions, but without the other priorities and other focuses that you had in life that maybe defined who you are. So now you're just left with yourself, and and it leaves you to question some of these things. But how am I taking care of myself? What is my relationship with myself? Because in the past, you were just focused on serving others, and you put yourself last because you could get away with it, and it was a socially accepted thing to do.
Well, it's taught, right? We're taught to be servants more than anything else. I say this every time because we live in a patriarchy. But I almost say every episode I talk about it, and I don't hate men, you guys. I really don't. I love men. I think men are awesome. I just think that if you read this book, The Alphabet versus the Goddess, it explains why the goddesses got killed. It has to do with written language and using the left side of the brain and things like that. And so I think that one thing I love what you said is that hope is not a success strategy, and if you want to, I mean, it's so important that if you decide to make a change, to get support. It doesn't matter where you get it. You're going to find the right person for you is out there. It might be me. It might be Tanja. It doesn't matter, because the right person to support you and whatever goal you have is there for you. It's just a matter of you taking that next step. Right? There's 8 billion people in the world. There's somebody who can help you. And the good thing about having a coach or somebody who can show you the way is that they've already been there. And so they can shorten the gap. For me in menopause, it took 5 years before I really understood what was going on. And then I was able to, I was like 220 pounds at my highest weight, maybe even more. I mean, I stopped weighing myself. I was so pissed off. And when I finally decided I got to do something about this. I finally decided, I was like, okay, I'm going to exercise. I started exercising, and you know what? I lost nothing. I was like, what's going on here? Then I had to realize that what worked in my 20s and 30s won't work now, right? Because things are different, and my body wants to hold on to fat because of estrogen. And then the other thing that happened was really understanding that exercise is not a weight loss tool. And I'll tell you that the diet and fitness industry want you to believe that exercise is the tool for weight loss. Because all you got to do is go out there and run. But if you come home and all you do is eat French fries, you know what's going to happen? Your brain's going to feel a little better because you ran. That's it. You want to lose weight? You've got to really pay attention to the diet. Yeah.
You said there, and you're right, I do say this a lot, hope is not a strategy. Hope is a great feeling. It's a terrible strategy. It makes you feel better in the moment. The whole getting support thing, it is absolutely important. And yet we often have this belief, and I work with my women a lot about the internal beliefs and everything, and the stories that hold us back, that we shouldn't need help sometimes, that we should be able to do it on our own. Perfectionist tendency, I should have figured it out by now. And also it can be taking a lot of courage also to get help, especially when you're coming at a place where having failed so many times in the past and having done so many things in the past, it can take a little bit of courage to reach out and get help. And it's worth it. It absolutely is worth it, because when you're clear on what you're missing out on, the cost of not taking action, that decision of not to take action, and what that's actually costing you, it's really quite worth it. Now, you also said about the exercise and weight loss, and oh my gosh, you're bang on there, because you love My Fitness Pal, and they say, well, I did this, and because hormonally too, for a lot of women through menopause, they are already going through enough stress that when you layer on the intense cardio and the intense exercise, there's more. That's another stress on the body, and depending on the person, that could be really counterproductive from a fat loss perspective. I think movement's really important, but it's important, right, for the reasons you said. It's for the mental health, it's for the mood, and quite often, once you can separate and you can break the ties between exercise and diet and weight loss, and so exercise is for mental health, it's for how I feel, it can also be really helpful, because now you start to feel better. You start to build that identity of the fit, vibrant, healthy woman, because she goes for walks, she moves her body. And I also know from my background, because my first background was in education, was in movement, our bodies are meant to move. Our bodies are, it's just for posture, for energy. If you want vibrant energy, if you want to feel good, if you want to go and keep up with your grandkids and do all the things and travel, movement is a non-negotiable. But it's for those reasons, like you said, Dr. G, not because we need to burn X number of calories on the elliptical trainer just so that we can earn our food or
eat ice cream or pizza.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's this app that I use sometimes called Zwift. So Zwift is a bike trainer app. It's by subscription, and they measure your calories in pizza slices. Mostly men use it. I mean, actually women use it too, but it drives me crazy, because it's I don't want to really measure any exercise I do in terms of pizza. I want to eat pizza when I want to eat pizza. And that's kind of the thing. And when we start to say should to ourselves, right? I should be able to do it by myself now. I should be able, and I did that for so many years. And then I don't know what happened. I started reading maybe Jack Canfield or something way back in 2009. And I was and the book I recommend by Jack Canfield for anybody who wants to start to create a life they love it's a book called The Success Principles. Now, if you don't know who Jack Canfield is, he wrote Mark Victor Hansen, Chicken Soup for the Soul. And for those of us who are in our 50s, we remember the OJ trial, and they had 160 rejections of their book. And what they did is so smart. They sent a copy, everyone on the jury. And so if you look back at those recordings from Judge Ito's courtroom, you'll see that they were carrying Chicken Soup for the Soul books at that trial. And that's how they got going after they got published. Anyway, I started reading Jack Canfield, and I started realizing one of the principles is hire a coach. And for me, I had never really hired a life coach or anybody before, but I was I'm not happy with my life. So yeah, let me try this. And I created a vision board. We were talking about that before. I created a vision board, and everything on that vision board came true except for one thing. And that was about something about a book that I just never wrote. So you don't take any action, you're not going to get what you want. And ever since then, I've used coaches as a means to jumpstart, to kind of shorten the gap. And I found that to be really, really helpful, especially in my fitness. I have a triathlon coach that assigns workouts for me. And if I don't do them, they're red on my calendar, and it's really annoying.
For you.
Yeah.
The words, you actually just talked about the should word.
Yeah.
Language has such a power, and the words that we choose. One of the, I don't say core principles, but overarching things that I really coach on is intentionality and being intentional with your thoughts, with your words, with everything. And the should word is definitely one that we can have a bit of a red flag around. So when it comes up, start to question. I mean, this morning I was going and I did not have a plan for my workout. And one of my goals is to move my body every day. And not just to say goal, it's just one of my habits, my routines, because it makes me feel good. My body's meant to move. I didn't have a plan. And then I was thinking I should go for a run. I could go paddleboarding. I should go for a bike ride. And I was I should go do something. I'm whoa. It's so disempowering, that word, the shoulds. And says who? I ended up and my sister and I had a great, I went for a 5-mile walk, and we talked, and the whole time it was lovely. We actually had a really great time. She lives in Vancouver. We had a phone call. And the other words to really call as red flags are, even need, like I need to do this, just screams some lack. It's like I need.
Yeah.
And then I have to is another big one. There's a lot of women who go around feeling drained and feeling restricted all the time with their diets, with their workouts, with everything, because we're always in this language of I have to's. I have to go grocery shopping. I have to go pick up the kids. I have to go to work. And it's a very energetically draining. And then we wonder why at the end of the day, we just feel exhausted. You talk a lot about living or creating the life that you want to live. And a lot of that comes from just our perspective. It's not necessarily changing even what we do. I mean, this afternoon, I'm going to go and get some groceries for dinner. I mean, how lucky I am, honestly, that I get to go to the grocery store and take whatever I want really from the shelves and swipe my card and bring it home and cook it on the patio with my husband. Like, that's a pretty awesome thing. And the whole energy behind that changes. Your actions might be the same. You still might be doing the things, planning your meals, going for your walk, whatever you're doing, but the feeling behind it is totally different just by those simple shifts of your language. Another one is, I just said, what we do often is we go to give ourselves credit or say that we've done great things. It's like, well, I just went for a walk, as if I couldn't do more. There's always like I could be doing more. And that's, again, very draining, because of course you could always be doing more, but that's a mute point. There's always going to be a next level, and that's totally fine. But instead we need to start just taking out that word a little bit more and watching our language.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. You talk about the word just. You know, I worked as a general surgeon for 15, 16 years. And I just retired from general surgery in July of 2020. And when I would tell people that I was a surgeon, they would say, what kind of surgeon? I say, I'm a general surgeon. You're just a general surgeon. I'm like, just? Do you know what that means? You know, I mean, the general surgeons do really amazing things. Take out gallbladders. We fix hernias. We remove colons when they have to come out. I mean, it's not a just thing at all. It's like really cool. And so for a long time, when somebody said, oh, you're just a general surgeon, you know, I would kind of go with that until I realized that it was so disempowering. And so then when somebody would say it to me, I would be like, yeah, that's 15 years of school and 7 years of practice and then another 7 years. So yeah, expertise takes time. And I think that there's such an opportunity here to talk about the fact that, like we said before, you can't lose 100 pounds overnight. You can't really get good at something without putting yourself at it. And one of the Dr. G-isms that I say a lot inside my program or even here on the podcast is anything worth doing is worth sucking at it first. Kids never, ever, children, you know, toddlers, they fall down when they start to toddle. They get up, they laugh, they might cry a little bit because they're frustrated, but they never stop. They never like say, oh, I'm going to give up now because I suck at it. No, they just keep going. And so I always like to encourage the people I work with to try to approach whatever it is with the child's mind as if they never, ever heard any of it before. And I think when it comes to dieting for the last time or never dieting again, getting back some control over your life in that particular way, and maybe control is not the right word. Maybe it's really a letting go. When it comes to doing that, I think it's so important to stop worrying and just be.
I completely agree. I think of it as the beginner's mindset. And you would never, my analogy is always paddleboarding. So I'm like, if you go paddleboarding for the first time, you don't fall down and be like, oh, well, I can't do this. I'm done. Yeah. You keep going. The issue that we need to go into this is to come at that, to prepare that with that beginner's mindset and to let go of the fact that we should already know it, or we should already have got this by now. So many women that I work with had no idea. They did not expect that they'd be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, still struggling with their diet and their diet mentality. And they think that, you know, by the age of 50, 60, 70, that they should have been over it by now. And the issue is that you're actually going at it differently for the first time, because we've been practicing these diets and just doing following the plans without working on the mindset, all of those things for so many years. What you're doing now, learning how to make a lifestyle change, learning how to do it for life, learning how to raise your expectations of yourselves, learning how to have self-respect, learning how to speak kindly to yourself, or at least in a helpful, productive way, is new. And we compare ourselves so often to where we think we should be at this time.
Yep.
And it bites us. It does.
It does. Yeah.
Where we should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's all about how we choose to frame it more than anything else. We spend a lot of time working on reframing. I can see that you do that too. But one thing I had to get over was comparing where I am now to where I was when I was 18. That's when I was my most active. And, I started running when I was in high school. I took a class called Reading, Writing, and Running, and I loved it. And then I had open heart surgery, and I stopped running after that. And I started smoking. And it's just like really stupid things. And then life happened, and I ended up, getting married, having a kid, and then getting divorced, going to medical school. I just never really got back into fitness except for I started riding a bike a little bit. And it wasn't until I actually I got through menopause. Menopause was happening, and it was super disruptive. And I was like, man, I got to get the word out. So we did a TV show, and we went and rode bikes. And actually, if anybody wants to watch it, you can watch it on YouTube in succession. It's like episodes, I want to say it's episodes like 4 through 11 or something of the podcast, maybe 4 through, I think there's 9 episodes. It doesn't lend itself very well to the podcast format, but it's good on YouTube. So go to the Menopause Movement podcast on YouTube, and you can go down to I think it starts with the 4th episode. So it's 4 through 13. And we did a show, and we went to Spain, and I had to ride my bike in Spain. So I said, oh shoot, I got to get a coach. I got to get somebody to help me get in fitness, because I'm going to ride up this mountain in Spain. And that's what I did. And I didn't lose much weight because I never really changed my diet. And I had a diet coach, but the diet coach was starving me. And I was like, this sucks. I hated how I felt. So we rode long story short, I rode my bike up this 10,000 meter hill or mountain, and it was awesome. And I did it in 20-minute increments. I was like, okay, I can do this. I'll just 20 minutes and then stop, and 20 minutes. And this diet took me an hour and a half. And I just did it, right? And one thing that happens when you do something like this is that when you do something you think might be impossible and you're able to do it, it just gives you more fuel to pursue whatever it is your dream is, right? And it kind of builds that self-efficacy, that self-belief muscle. And that's why it's so important to start with little things and get wins, right? And so I'm just going to talk for a second about our Menobody Challenge. You can get that at menopausemovement.com/challenge. And the reason it works is because you don't have to change everything all at once. It's just one little thing a week. When you want to get off the diet roller coaster, which, it's such, God, who makes money if we get off the roller coaster? We do, right? Because we're not paying for things anymore. We're not, and so not only do you keep more money in your pocket, but you actually start to win. You start to win. And so when women come to work with you, right, what is the very first thing that you, let's say I'm your client. I'm coming. I'm saying, please help me. I all I'm doing is gaining weight, and I can't stop. I can't stop eating rice. I love rice. So tell me how you would deal with that.
Well, take all the rice out of your pantry. I'm just kidding. I follow with my women in Fit Environment over 50. I follow a 3-step process, and we do a 6-month coaching program that I have, and we have 3 phases. It's called See It, Do It, and Live It. And the See It phase is all about laying the foundation. So we talk about the nutrition a little bit in the program. Honestly, it's pretty minimal. I coach probably 5% at the most on the nutrition. The rest is everything else that goes into it. But we actually spend the first 2 weeks, sometimes a bit more, just really laying the foundation to set up the routines, the structures to build consistency, because we're really in it for the long haul. We're not here to white knuckle it and cut out rice, or limit your rice right away. But the great thing is that when we have these routines, we have a really strong morning routine, we get clear on our goals, we have a planner that we use to keep ourselves organized, we start to implement the structures and the routines so we stay consistent, because just like changing your mindset, we can't leave it to chance. We need to have the 3 things I talk about all the time is simplicity, consistency, and routines. And we need the routines and structures so that when you say, now I'm going to work on my mindset, you have the framework to fit that in. And so we work on that first. And it's actually really freeing, because most women, are used to starting on Monday and cutting out everything. And it's really not about that. We do work on that long game. Phase 2 is where the transformation begins, where we really focus on aligning what you do in your day with the person that you want to be. And I think about I always think about the building a house analogy, where the laying the foundation is that first phase. It's just really about getting the plan, getting the tools, because you can't just start building in some house if you're on a rocky foundation or an unstable foundation. You really need to build that first. And then we actually start working on some really small, simple habits. There are 6 keystone habits that I teach my clients. And as you do that, honestly, even when you start with the first phase, your mindset's already changing. So it becomes like those kind of things, like I just can't eat the rice or eat too much rice. Those naturally just start to take care of themselves almost without too much effort, because you're working on that inner piece and you're working on really building into the identity of the person you want to be. So that second phase is all about the actual building the house. It's putting the house, it's putting like the kitchen in, the bathroom in, the roof on the house. That's actually what you do to create the camp. Because although I love the mindset piece and I love the self-talk, we also do need to make some changes as to what we're doing, because otherwise, John Acuff said, affirmations without action is a fortune cookie. And
I like that. I tell my clients that a goal. Yeah, I think I say
a goal without action is a dream.
Dream without an action is just a wish, or a goal without an action, without any action is just a wish.
Both, for sure.
Yeah.
And the third phase that I work with my clients, we actually do the last 2 phases simultaneously. But if the first phase is all about laying the foundation, the second phase is all about aligning what you do in your day. And we have so much coaching and support, one-on-one group calls, all the things every single day with a mindset upgrade, all the things, because you do need to, we said hope's not a strategy. It's a great feeling, not a strategy, to set yourself up for success. And that third phase we call live it. And live it is all about making that house strong, so that when you build up the house, it's about removing the barriers, the emotional eating, the stress eating, the mindset pieces, the overcoming urges, the what to do when you don't have support, what to do when you don't feel like it anymore. That's a big one. Mm-hmm. I mean, the hard part about all of this isn't when you're motivated and you are feeling like, okay, I started this program and I'm getting up early to go for my walk and I'm planning my meals on Sunday and I'm super motivated and I need to structure my life a little bit differently. But the hardest part of all of this is when you don't care anymore. Is when you don't want to do it anymore, when you want to give up, when you feel like a failure. That's the hard part. And that's where the coaching piece comes in. That's where working on that live it phase comes in. That's where I would love if all of my clients signed up for a program and there was like a nice linear straight path forward and they changed their mindset and they never had setbacks and lost the weight. That doesn't happen. That's not the reality. The reality is they do for a while, then there's a plateau or there's a challenge that comes up. And that's why having the system and setting yourself up for success, but having that coach, having that support is so critical, because it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when it's going to happen. And having that, I think like when you go bowling, and if you suck at bowling and every time your bowling ball goes into the gutters, it's kind of nice to have. We're like the gutter, the bumpers on the bowling alley.
Yeah, that's
if you go that way, you push yourself back and you still get the pins at the end.
Well, the whole idea, though, I think, is that when you start to focus on small habits, when you start to focus on little teeny things that you can change, that maybe 1% changes don't feel like anything, but they stack. And they stack and they stack. And so then if you do 1% improvement over a year, I think the improvement's like 158%. And if it's 2% a week, it's like 270%. I mean, it's really high, maybe 280. I can't remember. So if you're able to do a 1% improvement every week, let's just take something quantitative like your Instagram following, say, right? If you start with 1,000, you're going to end up with maybe 1,500, right? And then that just keeps on going. The whole idea, and actually more than that, probably if it's 158%, then you start with 1,000, you're going to have 2,500 about. The whole idea is to build, this is such a great analogy. It just came to me, but you're talking about building a house, right? And your habits are the bricks. Your habits are the bricks, so that when the big bad wolf comes and tries to blow down your house, and the big bad wolf is really our self-talk. It's the programs inside our head. And when that comes and says, no, you got to go back. You got to go back to doing this. You can say, no, I've built my house of these bricks of habits that now stack. That's awesome. What do you know?
There you go. Now you have another coaching point for your...
Yeah, exactly.
One thing you said there, I really want to just say again, because I think it's so important, is that you said habits and wins. While the habits are really important, the other part, and you did say this, I just want to make sure everyone out there is listening to this and gets this, is acknowledging and giving yourself credit and celebrating that win. Because what happens otherwise, you do these little habits and you never feel successful because the other part of your brain is saying, oh, I'm just doing that. I just went for a 5-minute stretching session. I just planned one meal. And you come at it from this place of lack and not doing enough. And you never get the feeling that you're after, which is feeling proud, feeling satisfied, feeling like that you've accomplished something. And then we wonder why we don't stick with it, because we don't ever allow ourselves to feel that feeling. So that is really the importance of, and this is part of one of the things I coach in that foundational piece, the see it phase, is the importance of really having a practice of giving yourself credit and to celebrating the wins, and not just going through the motions of it, but really allowing yourself to feel successful. And there's lots of ways you can do this with, sharing it with other people. This is why the support is really great. I can't tell you how many calls I get on with clients when we have our one-on-one calls, and I do ask them what's going well. And they're so fast sometimes to say all the things that they want to solve, and all the, paying attention to the gap of where they want to be to where they want to go, and not paying attention to where they are. Actually, and just my planner yesterday, we have this little section that says morning mindset message to myself. And my yesterday's message to myself was, when you look up at how far you go or want to go, remember to look back and at how far you've come. Because we get so focused on where we want to go, and we don't ever think about all the things that we're currently doing. And it's so, so important. And I'll tell you that if you ever feel like you are demotivated, if you feel like you are kind of have this lackluster relationship with your health goals and you don't really want to do it anymore, ask yourself, am I actually properly giving myself credit and celebrating my wins, or am I going through the motions or not doing it at all? And I guarantee you're either going through the motions or you're not doing it at all.
Yeah, there's so many ways to celebrate wins. I talked about comparing myself to my 18-year-old self and the reading, writing, and running and stopping running. And now I like to say, I can do more with this 56-year-old body than I could when I was 18. Now I can't run as fast, but I can run further. And I can just do a lot more. I can go out and I can run in this humidity here on the East Coast. I can do, I'm doing a 5K on Sunday, this, second one this year. And I'm actually competitive. The last 5K I did, I was number 7 out of 33 in my age group, which, not horrible.
That's awesome.
That puts me in the top third, right? I can't complain. For not being a lifetime athlete, I think I do okay. So
what the running too is that you say I'm top 7 in my age group. We compare ourselves it's a bit of a selection bias. You're comparing yourself to people who are actually doing a 5K run. There's a lot of people who are not.
Yeah, that's true. When I was 18, I did a race and I ended up winning my age group, and it was a small race, but I won my age group. And then I went off and had open heart surgery and never got back into running again. And I just let life happen. I stopped. I forgot who I was. It was really an interesting, when I look back at it now, there's always I wish I'd done something differently. But what I love to, when I start to look at things that I might regret, I always get into a place of gratitude, because without that experience, I wouldn't be where I am now. And that's, those experiences, good, bad, indifferent, horrible, traumatic, whatever they are, they still shaped who I am now. And so to get to a place of forgiveness and a place of self-compassion was hard, but it was really the smartest thing for me to do. Now, I want to shift gears just for a minute and ask you why so many women gain weight in menopause and what to do instead.
I like you talk about this all the time too, and all the different things. There's a lot of different reasons for it. Sometimes it's that women have done diets so many times in the past, and their bodies just, no matter how old you are, your body's going to just change that way. A big also reason is it's the hormones that shift too. Mm-hmm. That's a big reason. muscle mass tends to decline after the age of 40 unless you start to work out and actually strengthen it, and that can affect your metabolic rate. And then just the changes of the hormones. The body is more hardwired to fat, especially around the midsection, because fat is not an inert tissue. It is going to be helping with the estrogen and production. A lot of women have been so taxed and stressed their whole life through not always just work and traffic and all the things, but often it's just perfectionism or negative self-talk, doing all the things, not taking care of themselves. And after menopause, where the adrenals are supposed to be taking on a little bit more of the hormone production, it doesn't quite happen anymore. And that's why the body is going to prioritize doing whatever it can. I think a big part of all of this is it's not inevitable. Your body does change. What you did before is not going to do the same. It's not going to work anymore, or it's not going to get the same results that it did before. But also coming at all of this from a place of self-compassion, that to know that your body is actually trying to do the best she can for you. And she's not gaining weight around your midsection because she hates you. She's actually doing it because she wants for you to survive, and she's doing the best that she can. So coming at from that perspective is really important. And then when it comes to past menopause, and honestly, this is going to be applicable to any age, but it's really a lot about stress management, managing blood sugar levels as well, and then eating in a way that's going to promote, at some point, hormones matter, so does calories. So not overeating and having that balanced lifestyle, and knowing that your body will still be different than it was when you were, like I said, when you were 18.
Yeah, there are changes. I'll tell you, I look at a sandwich and I gain weight. It's just how it is. What do you think we need to do, women in menopause? Do you think we need to, we can say get over it, or we can, talk about stop it, but that's always not so easy. And so in menopause, do you think that there's a bigger role for self-compassion, say, or some other type of mindset?
The self-cap, we talked very much at the beginning about starting from a place of accepting yourself and how that changes. And when it comes to the stress response as well, that's one thing we talk about stress. And like I said, we know the stresses as in work deadlines, but we don't talk about in terms of the stress response is this constant negative self-talk. And your body doesn't feel safe. Your body feels like it's being attacked all the time. And there is a stress response that happens when you're always putting yourself, you don't feel at peace, you don't feel relaxed. Your body's going to hold on to things because of that. So it absolutely is important. And a lot of the things that I coach on, honestly, are applicable. Healthy habits like regular movement, positive or not even positive self-talk, but helpful self-talk.
Yeah.
You can definitely call yourself out sometimes, not everything's sunshine and rainbows, but being at least helpful and not just mean to yourself all the time. Strength training can be really helpful. And these are not just about weight loss, it's about just overall general health. And then when it comes to the nutrition side of things, I coach my women. Again, we make these small little changes. So we're not doing everything all at once, but we focus on really fueling the body, eating when you're actually physically needing food and you're hungry, and stopping before you are full. So getting to that point where you're actually, and there are some nuances there because some women are just so out of tune with what that looks like, or they never feel hungry because they don't know what it's like. And then the actual, I don't teach as in exactly, I don't prescribe exactly how many macronutrients or how many grams or whatever, but we have a baseline where we focus on fueling your body with adequate fats, adequate proteins, and a lot of high fiber, non-starchy vegetables. It's not rocket science. It's not anything. There's nothing magical that you haven't heard before. You know that you need to eat your vegetables and all these kind of things. There's really lots of common sense approaches, but the whole compassion piece that you said is it's important, not just from the physiological, from the physical perspective, but then also so it allows you to actually stick with it and not always hate the process. Because if you hate the process, you're going to quit.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. One of the things I think that's really important when it comes to behavior change and making positive changes in your life is that you want to set an outcome, right? I want to lose 100 pounds. Great. There's my outcome. And then it's a matter of, what is the process? What does that look like? When people have lost 100 pounds and kept it off for their entire life, what does their life look like? What are the behaviors that they do? What are the things that they think about? What are the activities that they do? What are the things that they eat? And some of them will have healthy habits and some of them will have unhealthy habits, and you get to pick and choose. And just like losing 100 pounds, changing your self-talk is not going to happen overnight. That is another thing that is, remember, a belief is just a sentence you say over and over and over in your head, right? And so your negative self-talk patterns are just things that you say over and over and over because maybe at one point when you were, before the age of 7, you heard it and you believed it. And that's the truth about you because somebody said that to you before you were 7 and you weren't able to reason. And that's just part of life, right? And so what I like to tell people, and if you're listening to this and this resonates with you, then great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But I just like to say, examine whatever story you're telling yourself and trust me, you're telling yourself stories. I tell myself stories. I'm always telling myself stories. And I'm always looking at why am I not reaching my goals? Or what's my block? I'm always looking for that because I'm a high performer. And you can be too. It's just a matter of being willing to be open and say, is there a story here that I have to examine? And then when you start to do that, you can actually start to make some progress. Yeah.
I said a couple of things that I think are really important. One is the fact that it does take time because we can often get to the whole self-acceptance, self-talk and treat it like the next diet where it's I failed. I'm going to wait till Monday to start speaking kindly to myself. That it is a process. We can't actually control the outcome in terms of how fast your body loses weight. We can't control. There's lots of things that are going to affect that. You can control the process though, and you can work on that and to have that trust as well. When you focus on the process, it actually also allows you to really stay focused on the things that are going to get you to where you want to be for the long haul versus just doing whatever it takes to lose 100 pounds or lose 10 pounds or whatever you want to do without any regards to whether you can keep it off. And you also said about the things take time, and it does. The decision, change happens in an instant. It's the decision to make the change. It now just takes time for that to become easier and for the outside world to start to catch up to what's happening inside. So it's just, and that comes from repetition. It comes from the practice of it. And it does get easier over time. So to really trust that.
I like to say that I want to catch up with my future self. Yeah. So before we go, I want to know if you can just tell us what is normal eating and how can I become a normal eater?
That's a whole podcast in itself. There's a lot of things with normal eating. I'll tell you a couple things. So that one is that normal eating does not mean that you'll never emotionally eat, or you'll never eat foods when you're not hungry, or that you have this perfection thing. Normal eating is going to look different from person to person. And the actual what you do is going to be different from person to person. Normal eating, when I think of it, it's eating foods that, for the most part, and not attaching your identity to any kind of way of eating where I'm only this way, or I'm no, you're you, and you eat mostly this way most of the time, and you're okay. It's it's more about the intention behind it, and where food becomes food for the most part. And it's not consuming a whole bunch of your mental real estate on what to eat or what not to eat. And you can do food naturally. You don't feel like you're out of control around food. And I do want to say that doesn't mean that eating is going to be perfect. And it's not going to mean that you're never going to sometimes be super stressed or super sad and eat ice cream because of it. I think that's a bit of a fallacy that we think that normal eating means that we'll never, because we're emotional people and that's fine. It's more about how it affects your life and what that looks like. But I love the idea from eating is to eat a certain way most of the time, and focusing for the most part on eating in a way that makes your body feel good, makes you feel good. Not just in the moment of I want that on my lips right now because it tastes good or right to my tongue, but how you want to feel. And just like everything else, although that's not something that happens overnight, there's a really big it's definitely a process. Yeah. And one thing I love about the relationship with me, like I mentioned, I coach about 5% on nutrition and the rest on our relationship with ourselves. And when you start to focus on changing your eating habits, when you start to focus on, okay, what's it like now just to sit with my thoughts instead of numbing out with food, we start to bring up some things that we might want to start to discover a little bit, because before we're not even aware that these things are happening because we're always numbing out with food or we have these other distractions. And it's like for a lot of people when they stop alcohol for the first time, like it's really hard because they don't have that coping mechanism, and it could be a little bit scary. I do want to say that sometimes it can stop you from even starting because you don't want to bring up these things.
Yeah.
It's not a prerequisite for changing your eating habits. You don't have to go dig into your past and solve everything that's happened in the past and all the traumas and bring everything up. But also just trust that if that does happen, or you start to dip your toe into some things that you may not want to bring up in the past, that you will do it at a pace that's comfortable for you, or that it'll come at a pace that you feel ready for. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit of a roundabout question. But that's how I would define it.
Yeah, that's great. I think that if we want to get started with it, I mean, I think the key there is awareness. And as I say in the beginning of the podcast, that, awareness is the first step to any change. And so if you want to make changes, if you're looking in the mirror and you don't like what you see, then you can reach out here, where you TanjaShaw.com. And you can reach out to Tanja. You can reach out to menopausemovement.com, and you can take our quiz and you can get some help there. There's lots of help. And if it's not me and if it's not Tanja, it's somebody else. But there's definitely someone out there that specifically can help you when you go look for it. And I know that I started the menopause movement because I had problems with menopause, and I went looking for a course and I couldn't find one. And it was really frustrating. And so I was like, well, I guess it's me. I'm going to write the course. And I did. And it's helping people. And that's kind of where we are.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So was there anything else you were hoping to share?
I mean, honestly, I could talk forever about this stuff. I love it all. I just love, I guess my last thing is that believe that it's possible. And you believe it's possible not always because you think you can do it, but by being inspired by other people, and to not necessarily know that to get started, you need to have the entire path mapped out. You don't have to believe that you can keep off the weight, all that kind of stuff. You just need to trust the process, follow the system, and take that first step and have the confidence that you can figure it out. Like, why not you?
Yeah.
Your past is not your potential. If you've been struggling for years, decades, why not you? Like, others have done it, and so can you. And it takes courage to step up. It takes courage to get help. It takes courage to put your hand up and to say, I'm ready. I want to try again. It takes courage sometimes to have that conversation with your spouse that you're going to do something again, or maybe you don't want to talk about it. Who knows? But believe that it's possible, because you absolutely can. And it's hard sometimes just to think like, oh, how is this different? Because I've tried everything in the past. I'm like, no, you haven't, because if you did try everything in the past, you'd have tried consistency, and that works really, really well. Yeah. Let go of the past and like you said, have that child beginner mindset, and you can absolutely, absolutely do it. I have emails and Facebook messages and phone calls with my clients every single day, and I get the honor, the privilege of seeing it every single day. So I know it's possible. And if you're listening to this podcast, it is absolutely 100% possible for you.
Definitely. Sometimes I tell my clients that sometimes you have to start change with, I wish I wanted to want to.
Yes.
I wish I wanted to want to. And when you get to that, then the universe can answer you. The universe can answer you, and you can start to move forward.
I like that.
Well, Tanja, thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement today. I hope to have you back. It'd be really great to have you come meet our community. I think that would be awesome if that's something you're interested in. Meet my ladies. All right. Well, thanks again. Thanks for being a part of the menopause movement today.
Thanks so much.
Did you know that menopause is not a medical condition? Most doctors don't know this either. I like to say that menopause is the privilege of a long life. And to really take hold of our lives in menopause, we have to unlearn what society and the medical establishment has told us about menopause. This is why I've created this brand new course called Understanding Your Hormones and Managing Your Menopause. I want to show you how you can get on top of your menopause right now so that you can start to see it as the best time of your life. Now, this course is valued at $500 and is in the beta testing phase. And we're currently accepting applications for women to test it out for us at no charge in exchange for feedback and testimonials. But the best part is, because you're a podcast listener, you can bypass the application process and go straight to the front of the line. To register right now, simply visit menopausemovement.com/hormones, and we can get started together right now. Remember, you can get started right now at no charge to you in exchange for feedback and testimonials when you go to menopausemovement.com/hormones. And I'll see you inside the course. Thanks so much for being a part of the menopause movement.